And we are very grateful to have Eric Hastets to talk to us today about communication and facilitation in group settings. So Eric, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much, Connor. So for any of you that don't know me, my name's Eric Hasted. Until pretty recently, like a month and a half ago, I was a community mobilizer for Safe Streets, which would have been the context that I've met a lot of you actually. And so I'm really excited to see a lot of you that are here. So I'm just going to share my screen and we can get into it. So the session that we're going to be talking about today is going to be how we engage others. So I wanted to pick a pretty simple topic, pretty simple title, just because I think that it's such a big topic that it really deserves a lot of intentional conversation. So all of you that are here are involved in one way or another with a group, an initiative, a project. You work with other community members, you put on activities in order to make your neighborhoods safe, clean, and healthy. You are involved in things where you need to work really hard to get others to help support you as well. And so really what we're going to be talking about today is how you do that. So how you're doing it currently, what are some of the barriers to really engaging others in a productive way, and also the different things that we do that we could maybe inspire each other for new ways that we can try to reach out and engage with those that we're trying to work with. So as far as how this session specifically is going to work, so for the bulk of our time together, we're going to be breaking up into, I think for this many people, 2 small groups. The 2 small groups are probably going to be about 5 or 6 people. It just depends on how many total that we have in attendance right now. And we're going to be answering 3 questions. For those 3 questions, we're going to try to take about 15 minutes per question. And then there's going to be myself facilitating one group and Connor facilitating the other group. We're also going to be having one non-Safe Streets attendee that we'd really love if you would volunteer to report out for your group, because eventually we're going to be coming back into this full large group again. We're going to have a little bit of a report out from what those small groups were talking about, what really stuck out to you. And then we're going to be having some discussion on that until the end of our time. Does anybody have any questions about any of this before we actually get into it? And I apologize because I'm screen sharing and I have one screen. It's kind of hard for me to see, so I'm going to stop sharing for just one moment. Okay, that seems pretty straightforward. So I'm just going to do a really quick overview of what those questions are going to be. So again, this is going to be a very involved workshop. It's going to be an opportunity for you to be able to really network and communicate and share with some of the other people in attendance. And so for that purpose, I would really love it if you start getting in your head now, what are one of those groups that you're a part of? What's one of those projects that you are working on that you need to engage other folks? To be thinking about how you're going to answer these 3 questions in the breakout rooms. So the 3 questions are going to be, how are you currently engaging new and existing group members? What are the barriers to members staying engaged? And also, what are the barriers to members joining in the first place? And then finally, the question that we're going to try to answer together is, what can you do to improve engagement? So that's based off of some of the ideas that other folks have shared, some of the barriers. And built into that question is also an opportunity to provide some feedback to one another. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and break up into those 2 rooms. And then again, there was going to be either myself or Connor that's going to be facilitating. And for the first question, what I found to be kind of the best way to get it started, because it's always a little bit of hesitation trying to figure out who's going to start first, is if the facilitator wouldn't mind choosing someone, and then we're just going to go around within your small room, introduce yourself and whatever your group initiative is. And then from there, it tends to popcorn pretty well for people having good ideas for the ways that you're currently engaging others. So with that, I'll turn it back to Connor so that we can split up into our 2 rooms.
All right. And for those of you who are still here, welcome. Hello. And this group in particular, you are going to be the recorded ones. So I will maintain if you don't want to be recorded, leave your cameras off. However, please have your mics on so that we can have this conversation. So I'm going to leave the PowerPoint off so we can see each other and have this conversation. And we can just go around and, like Eric said, we have a just kind of a share out as to who you are and what kinds of groups are you involved in. That could be your community group, that could be a group that you have at work, or maybe just a personal project that you have, some kind of thing that necessitates that kind of conversation. So my name is Connor Schultz. I am a community mobilizer for Safe Streets. I'm usually down south, Parkland, Spanaway, and a lot of unincorporated Pierce County. And the neighborhood groups that I help facilitate and manage is a lot of the group work that I work with. Would you like to volunteer to go next, or?
Sure. This is Michelle Robinson. I'm I guess a participant in the Stewart Heights Coalition neighborhood group. And recently, well, for quite a while, we haven't met in person, and we haven't done any virtual meetings, just kind of engaging online through other ways. So yeah, I think there is one project in particular that we're interested in, of letting our neighbors know about the recycling program, specifically how we have all the really cool bins out at the Stewart Heights Park. So trying to engage with the neighbors to find out how we can share that info and how to use them correctly.
Excellent. Thank you, Michelle. Any other brave volunteer? Oh, Sue?
Hi, sorry, I'm trying to get caught up on some work while I'm listening, but I didn't want to miss it this time. I'm Sue Hart with Building Beyond the Walls. I'm the founder and executive director. As a nonprofit, I am involved in many different groups, either coalitions, volunteer groups, committees, boards, just a lot of opportunity to grow in how to communicate with so many different personalities and how to engage in a way that is meaningful and I guess encouraging to others, especially in this time.
Great, thank you. Glad to have you here. All right. Doug and Nancy, if you'd be willing to introduce yourselves to us and kind of things that you do.
Hey, hi, we're Doug and Nancy and Doug Hicks. We're up in the Lincoln Park District. We just recently became interested in joining Safe Streets. This meeting was recommended to us as a jumping off point.
Great.
So we aren't particularly involved in any community endeavors at this point. We are looking to make, as you say, Connor, our neighborhood safe and healthy.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, thank you. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you. We're happy to be here.
All right. Wanda?
Hi, good evening. I'm Wanda Rochelle, and I'm the operations director for Safe Streets. And so I've been with Safe Streets for almost 17 years now. And so I'd like to say I'm involved in a lot of neighborhood groups, but that's through work, of course, and it's what I love. But on the other side of that, I'm also involved with my Rotary out here in the Graham, Frederickson, Eatonville area. And just community work in general is exciting to me, to see that change that's created, and people, are empowered to do things. So welcome, Doug and Nancy. I think that's wonderful that you're here. And this is going to be, I think, a good jumping off point for you. So thank you for being here.
All right. And Antonio.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, how you doing? Antonio Macklemore, and my connection to Safe Streets is few connection. My first connection was with the Tacoma Urban League and some of the work that we were doing on the east side, First Creek and Lister. But currently over the last 6 months, I've transitioned into a role with Metro Parks Tacoma, where I serve as a community center supervisor with both People Center and the Eastside Community Center. And I know we've partnered with Safe Streets to help run our late nights. And it just has been a fabulous partnership, and I think really consequential and providing with connecting our community directly to service provider. And I think we're like Metro Parks is in a space, I think historically in a new space where we're beginning to really analyze and address how we've always served community. And I think for the first time, we are realizing we don't have to have wraparound services. We just have to have wraparound relationships. And so in order for us to effectively serve community, it's really going to require partnerships and relationships. So, and I wanted to make the first three, but I'm like, I can't, I have to honor this space by showing up to at least the final one. So I'm here and happy to be here and learn.
Well, we're glad to have you here, Antonio. Thank you. And as just a general reminder, we do have recordings of all of these sessions. That's why we're recording them. They're on our YouTube channel. If you want to go and check out the information that has been shared. Safe Streets Campaign is the name of the actual YouTube channel. So we're going with engaging new and existing group members. I kind of want to jump back to Michelle because you started in that direction. Not a whole lot of direct online communication. You haven't been stuck on Zoom like some of us have for the last 2 years. But you said that you've been using other online means of communication for those people. Could you talk a little bit more about the kinds of things you've been working with?
Sure. So my husband, Justin, is the one who has an email list. So he's the one that'll send out emails to the members of the Stuart Heights Coalition who signed up either by coming to a national night out or actually, I think also we have 2 Facebook groups. So if anybody wanted to be on an email newsletter and found us that way through Facebook. So also engaged there. And the Nextdoor app is our other online, I guess, access point.
Mm-hmm. And how do you get that information out to interested people? Is it they come to you or
through I guess making a post, putting a post on a Facebook group for anything and waiting for the comments or a post in Nextdoor, things like that. Yeah, I'm just waiting for the comments. Otherwise through email, it's whoever writes back.
Okay. So aside from the internet version, what other ways have people been trying to reach out, either to current members or trying to find new ones?
In our group, in the Stuart Heights group?
I'd say it can be in the Stuart Heights group. I noticed Sue was just unmuting, so kind of the different things that she's been working with.
Well, we do, like I'm currently working on our newsletter that just kind of communicates with everybody what we're doing. I'm a kind of old fashioned in that I really like to call people instead of text, or I think we're finding, and I'll turn that on while I talk, but I think we're finding more and more that the less that we talk, or if we can't see each other and be with each other, we still need to be able to have that conversation, and something about just actually picking up the phone or if I do need to talk to somebody, I would rather do either a phone or a Zoom than a text or an email,
Mhm.
just because so much gets lost in translation.
Face-to-face communication is something that we're both taking for granted, I think, as well as, particularly in the last 2 years, realizing how much we depend on it and how much we miss. Something that I do outside of work and outside of Safe Streets is that I run or help moderate a community of gamers on the Discord platform. And so it's just a server with a whole bunch of different people, and very few of them are comfortable speaking in a voice chat. And so it's nearly all text communication. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of difficulty and a lot of realization of how much is lost when you don't have the nuance of facial expressions, body language, tone of voice.
Well, I've just finished reading the book, What Happened to You with Dr. Perry and Oprah. And it really talks about the part of what's happening in that we're not communicating. I mean, we have all these wonderful ways to communicate, but we're not communicating like you do, and how that's causing the division there is right now is because we have been isolated so much from each other. And you know, they call it rupture, that when you have a rupture in a relationship, or just, you know, a tiff, right, in a relationship, and then you repair that relationship, that can bring you closer, and it helps build resilience. And right now, we're not doing that. We're not trying to resolve differences. We're trying to be, you know, right or wrong, left or right. You know, it seems to be very hostile right now.
Mhm.
I think I'm going on a different tangent. So, but,
We're
yeah.
kind of jumping into question 2, which is, you know, the barriers for members to staying engaged or joining a group or a project. And we notice, and it's kind of what the questions are structured as they are, is because knowing how we are currently doing it, we start to see, well, okay, we can put this together, but it also means that we have difficulties in being able to communicate and engaging, and recognizing that that's important. So for the most part, just looking at that list of communications that we've been able to utilize, particularly in the last couple of years during the pandemic, we're utilizing pretty much every single form and method of communication that is available. We've been striving for communication. Yes, Nancy?
One of the things that Doug and I do, because we have a dog, is we walk our dog 3 or 4 times a day around, and different routes around the whole neighborhood. And in this way, we have been able to become acquainted with tons of our neighbors that we wouldn't know otherwise, just because we see them, we say hello, we say nice yard, or painted your house, or whatever. And in this way, we've been able to engage with people. As we're new to this project of trying to keep our neighborhood safe, that would be the first line of communication that we would take.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Kind of the backbone in some ways of kind of what Safe Streets is trying to do is being able to know each other, so that
Right.
you can ask for help if you need it, and you also know who's around.
Yeah, and we do. We know almost everybody by name for blocks.
Mm-hmm. That's really impressive.
And that makes a huge difference. You know, listening to you talk, I remember I used to live up in Snohomish, and for 11 years, my neighbors and I walked every day. And when 9/11 happened, it was very interesting because it changed the way, I mean, more people were coming out to greet us. We were having more conversations with neighbors. And if one of us was gone, so that my neighbors were a husband and wife and myself. And so if one of us were gone, people would ask, oh, well, they used to call me the dog lady because the dog was mine, but where's the dog lady? And so it's just very interesting to me that that brought us closer together, actually, and became more aware of our community. And here we are back, not quite full circle, but I think that's where we need to be, is where we need to get back to being able to know our neighbors and to be able to get out and walk. So good for you, Doug and Nancy, for doing that.
Well,
That's where it starts.
We'd like to have a purpose behind it as well. You know.
But you do.
Right, learning how to apply it now.
Yeah.
And looking for the talking points to be able to get over, the standard objections of apathy, time constraints, trying to get other neighbors involved, and showing that we can make a difference, and cumulative, we can have a better quality of life for everybody in the neighborhood.
Well, were you guys on the first? Were you at the first one?
No, this is our first one.
Okay. Because I did a presentation based on our program and one of the projects that we developed through the pandemic, the pantry project. And a lot of my pantry hosts have communicated about how that by hosting one of those pantries, it has really helped them build in their community and even beyond. Reaching out. So
we'll look for that on YouTube.
Okay. Yeah.
It's all coming full circle.
I know, I'm YouTube now. Okay, that's right. I forgot.
Let's talk a little bit about the barriers that Doug mentioned, the apathy, the busyness. This is something that I run into all the time when it comes to trying to bring people together, trying to have them interested in starting a group. This is the thing. People are busy. Everyone has lives to live. So how do we handle that? And what's everyone's kind of experience in encountering those kinds of barriers?
I think as far as the busyness goes, I think it's a matter of priorities. I think if there is imminent danger in the neighborhood or problems that we all agree that are there, I think the apathy can be somewhat overcome. But it's and also relationships, like you said, it's, we can say, hey, Sean, are you going to come tonight? Are you going to be there? Are you going to, things like that. I don't know.
I think the need is there. I mean, it's obvious people, don't like the litter and the petty crime and things like that. So the old sales techniques of creating a need and overcoming objections, right? I think the need is there. If they could see a reward for their effort, it might help overcome the apathy and allow them or motivate them to invest time for the reward of, cleaner neighborhood streets, less petty crime, whatever their concerns are in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts?
Well,
I just know. Oh, I'm sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
Oh, in our group, when I first started going to our neighborhood group, it wasn't a very large group, and through the years that we did it in person, it was never very large, but I was told that that was almost a good sign, because the group, when it had first started and was very large, it was because there was a lot of issues in the neighborhood, and seeing, like you said, when you're seeing the trash, when you're seeing the crime, when you're seeing the issues, and that's when you've had enough. That's when we were told people will come find you. And so we've just kind of I suppose, just being a lighthouse and just letting people know that we're still here and we're still doing, what we can, and we're offering services. But if anyone has issues, to come find us. So I'm hoping that that's still that's still working, because my barrier is that I don't know what the neighbors are thinking. I'm waiting for them to come find us.
Mm.
Yeah, well, that's why we're here. We got tired of complaining about it. And actually, our neighbors, I think, are having the same basic thought process that we have. Calling 911 doesn't do any good. Petty crime is not responded to. So we just got tired of complaining about it. That's why we're here. But I think the same theme is pretty consistent through our neighborhood anyway.
So that tends to be a fairly consistent pattern, and people keep getting pushed.
Well,
And I think the education, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think the education is the other part that helps people get over their apathy. So just talking with Pat Fisher,
yeah.
talking with Pat Fisher about, why we don't dial the non-emergency 911 anymore. He explained to us how, even though the officers can't come and do anything about open drug deals and the petty crime and theft that we see, that it's being recorded. And then when the budget allows more patrol officers, that they will go to those stats and decide where the patrols need to be placed. So even though you don't see an immediate response, call them the non-emergency 911,
311,
the non-emergency police number, does have a cumulative positive effect on what we're trying to accomplish. So that helped reduce my apathy and just saying, well, it's useless. Why dial the number? Nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
But actually something does happen. It's just not immediate.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we hear all the time, is that you based on the amount of calls that are made is where they get funded at. But I commend you, because there's Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world, and that's what we have to do. And and I started building Beyond the Walls because I saw this 15 years ago, where with the onset of email and everything, that people were becoming less genuinely connected. So in our program, one of the things, our main goal is to build community through service. And but that's really a hard thing to sell, to get people excited about. What happens is we give them free construction training. That's kind of the hook that gets them in. And then every class we bring community organizations in to bring them food and have them do a presentation about what it is that they do in the community. And then they get this training free, and they have to give 50 hours back to the community. So that's what's in it for them. And then what is interesting is that I had a Microsoft engineer who went through our program, and we do a reflection at the end. And he said, well, I said, so what is it that you took away that you was unexpected? And he said, I had no idea how isolated I was in my white collar job. So I asked him what he was going to do about it. And he says, well, we're going to volunteer more. I had no idea the impact of volunteer time and what it meant to really be engaged in your community. So, you know, I just, again, commend you and anybody who's out there working in their community, just to even be a presence and saying, look, we can do this together, because that's really the only way we're going to make a difference.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. I kind of want to circle back to that thought of no immediate response or no immediate solution to issues. When we talk about apathy and the world that we kind of reside in, where we want things to be resolved quickly in one fashion or another. How do you handle the slow burn, as it were, of being able to work towards something, even if it takes a long time to get it done?
Well, it's like the mortgage on a home. You pay the mortgage month in and month out with the end goal in mind of owning your home. And if that's one way to actually present it, you know, you pay your mortgage every month so that you will own your home, and you become involved in your neighborhood. So eventually it becomes what you want it to look like, which is safe and healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you know, there's a lot of things that we don't even know how to address. There's, you know, currently there's people parked across the street from our home, living in a van and creating trash and debris on the street, and you know, who knows what's going on, and it's less than 100 feet away from an elementary school bus stop. We don't know how to deal with something like that. You know, you tell 311 and they say, well, you know, we can't help you.
Mm.
And, so it's concerning. It's concerning. We don't know how to address something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that to me is kind of one of those big barriers, because when you have a mortgage, you know what you're paying towards and what it eventually creates. But when it comes to a lot of the things that come to bear on a community issue, you don't necessarily know that such and such a thing taken care of for a long period of time is going to create everything that you want.
No,
because the world is unpredictable like that.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think we have a problem in society right now with that we expect everything's instant. You know, we want it right now, right? I wish I could remember the comedian's name who did a bit about being up in an airplane and how the Wi-Fi wasn't working. And he was like, oh my gosh, he said, you are in an airplane flying 10,000 feet above land. He said, that in and of itself is a miracle. You can go a minute without Wi-Fi. But it's like we want everything instantaneously now. And we've lost, you think back during the World War II and the love letters that they wrote with such longing and such, you know, anticipation. And I don't know what people anticipate anymore. It's everything. Let's put it on our credit card. Let's, you know, you deserve it, right? It's not about, and I think that falls into the rest of our life is like, I want this now. So
delayed gratification is not something that is certainly fostered in our society. That's for sure. You're absolutely right. And we don't know if we're just there's a part of us, a part of me that says, for example, with the unhoused population that is moving into our neighborhood, where else are they going to go? They're trying to shelter themselves, and who can fault them for that? But the element of crime and trash that comes with it is, I don't even know how to address it. I don't even know how to address it. Is this something that other people? I mean, am I going off on a tangent? How do I address that with our neighbors? How do?
Well, I will say it is a little bit of a tangent. We did have a presentation on homelessness in our conference, so one other reason to go back to to the things.
Went for that one too.
Antonio, your hand is up.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I think this is such an interesting conversation, and I'm going to try my best to to make it all fit in one dialogue. But I was reading this article a few years ago, and it was talking about like the human brain, like in the human condition, and how the brain thinks, right? So psychologists talk about our subconscious thinking, right? Subconscious, our conscious thinking. And psychologists say that 92 to 96% of our decisions, our behaviors come from our subconscious, right? So like it controls 92 to 96% of our behaviors. The problem with that is the other piece of the brain is it wants to automate everything. So the brain doesn't necessarily want to think. It just wants to automate, right? It doesn't want to know how the car functions. It just wants to push a button and go. Our brains don't want to, most people don't care to think about how the light switch work. They just want to turn the light switch. And I typically I work in educational spaces, and I work with thousands of educators, and I will use this Apple analogy, because in education, they want a quick fix. It's like, I want to do 5 lessons and I want to magically, my students change, my classroom change, and our school campus is going to be changed. And I often say, like, that's problematic, because what happens is we make these things the solutions, and we don't realize that our behaviors are actually a part of what we're doing, is actually the root of what has become, or the sum of our culture. And so I use this Apple analogy where where I always ask educators, right? I can kind of role play it in this meeting. Like, imagine that I were to give everyone an apple seed. And if I told you that this apple seed, once it manifests and became a fruit, it would change your world, right? I want you to just imagine that with me, right? Imagine I gave you an apple seed and I told you that this would change your world. But it grew just like every other apple. Now, if I gave you the apple seed at the end of our conference, you went and stuck that apple seed in the ground. The first question that I ask is, if I came back in 1 year, would you have apples for me? So I want to role play this. I want you to, would you have apples for me? Show of hands.
1 year, I don't think so.
Okay, we got one hand, right? So one hand, 2 hands, right? So now, that's kind of typically normal. And then there's some people in the room that I still have to convince. So I'll say, what about I came back in 2 years? Yeah. Right, so we get some more people in the room, right? And then there's typically a few other people that I've convinced. And I say, well, what about if I came back in 5 years? And typically you have everyone's hand in the room. Now, here's the reality. We are so far removed from even the process of like developing an apple from a seed form, because most humans, when they want an apple, they go to their local grocery store, right? They don't have to think about it. But it actually took a farmer anywhere from 7 to 10 years to grow the common apples that we consume. And so this is not a microwavable process, and it requires an intentional effort. And those that are farmers understand the importance of it. Just because you stick something in the ground doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to produce what you stuck in the ground. Apple seeds don't grow natural in Alaska. The last time I checked, I haven't seen pineapples growing natural in Tacoma, right? So certain things require the right environment, the right elements, right? Like, so so when I think about this conversation, right, about this microwavable culture, I think we are in a place in our society where we've been so far removed from the real solution and the work that we've relied on calling 911 or calling to or whoever. We've relied on these institutions that are no longer serving us because they don't have the capacity. And instead of doing the hard work, and I say I have to challenge myself. So I'm going to say this, but I want the people who are watching this that get offended for what I say, that I also put myself in this. Sometimes we're mentally lazy, and it's easier to call 911 or 211 or whatever than to go across the street and build a relationship, right? And so we've gotten away from the simple things. 50, 60 years ago, people knew who their neighbors were. And guess what? Crime was like, the crime is completely different 50 years ago than it is now, right? Because we've removed ourselves from what we call, Dr. Michelle Borba calls the empathy gap. Because when I insulate my world and I automate everything and I disconnect myself from not only my world, but the people around me, then what happens is my insulation creates anxiety about my own world, that I no longer care about other people's worlds. And when anxiety goes up, empathy goes down. And this is what creates our empathy gaps within our communities, that we don't care what's going on in other people's world. And I think we have to fight, right, to stop automating relationships. Because if we don't put our shoes on, put our jacket on, and be willing to be uncomfortable and be awkward, and maybe spend a few dollars and get some really good cookies and drop them off at our neighbor and have really awkward conversations, then the problem will continue. Sorry, I'll mute myself and listen again.
Thank you.
Well said, Antonio. That is awesome. I loved what you just said. One of the things that we do subscribe to at Safe Streets is that the problems didn't occur overnight. They're not going to get solved overnight, period, right? But when you do get together to talk and learn, you will create small changes. The best thing you can do at each of those times is celebrate that success. Celebrate your first meeting when you got to meet 5 of your neighbors that you never saw or you never knew before. Those are all little things that you guys can go, woohoo, look at what we did. So, I have watched groups like the Stewart Heights and Lincoln groups and things like that do amazing work in the community. And we celebrate everybody, but we want you guys to celebrate yourselves, because if you don't do it, you're not going to have anybody to do it for you. So we're here to root you on, but you guys are amazing, empowered community members. So, just Antonio, you've just inspired me. That was awesome.
I think we've all had at least one thing, and I'm sure several things in our lifetime that we had to work a long time to get done. And there's plenty of opportunities and moments during that process where we didn't think we'd finish it, got annoyed that we were still doing this. The law of diminishing returns is so common that it's automatically assumed to be the rule for everything. As we talk about having an instantaneous lifestyle, the accomplishments that are most worthwhile are the ones where the returns aren't immediate. And that takes time, that takes effort, that takes learning the skills and the principles necessary for that success. And it takes a lot of work and enjoying what you get in the meantime. So fighting apathy, coming back to what we were originally talking about, fighting apathy is being able to overcome that first major hurdle, that this is something worth doing. And that can come from a crisis moment, or it can be a other motivating factor, like having a good neighbor that you are friends with asking you to assist in something. We only have about a couple of minutes left before we bring everybody back. Does anybody have any other thoughts regarding improving engagement? Any other any other inspirational thoughts?
Well, Antonio, I absolutely adored everything you had to say. And when listening to other people talk, it also reminded me of what Quabi, do you know, I think that's his name, right? From the Peace Bus. He mentioned that we kind of live in a time where we've been taught how to eat, but we haven't been taught how to feed. And in a sense, it's like, I know how to get things done for myself and what I need to do to get myself done, but I feel like now I have to learn how am I going to support other people, and how am I going to help them with what their needs are. And kind of like what Antonio was talking about with the, getting the cookies and having the hard conversation. It sounds like fear is such a barrier to sometimes getting to know who our neighbors are, because if we have, a van or some RVs on our street, those are our neighbors. And I know in one of my old neighborhoods, it's not like I ever went out to knock on their door and be like, hi, how are you? What are you doing here? But I was doing some other cleanup work in the neighborhood, and then they saw and then wanted to help. I was cleaning up some blackberry bushes on the street, and they just kind of came out with a machete and was like, how can I help? I'm like, well, awesome. Here's where I need you to chop up the bushes, and got to know each other that way. But I almost the first thing that came to my mind was like, gosh, if there's trash, I almost want to find out, do they need a trash can? Because if you're living, temporarily in a mobile type situation, I don't know where people throw their trash away. And that's something that, if that was my neighbor, I'd be willing to help. I know I have, and that's something that I know a lot of us have a hard time thinking of, a scarcity mindset of well, this is all I have. But if you have more neighbors who can also say, well, I have this much room and I have this much room, I'm wondering if the neighbors can help say my trash can is also available, sort of a thing, or even just help clean up. But it definitely takes the hard question to going through past that fear to introduce yourself and be like, how can I help? I think that's what I really want to learn.
I gotta ask, what do you do when your neighbors are self-medicated, they're mentally unstable, they're doing open drug deals? You give a mouse a cookie, they ask for a glass of milk. There's lots of stories out there on Nextdoor where somebody lets somebody use a garden hose or put a tent in their backyard, and then their property's trashed, they can't evict them, and things that they can't replace are being destroyed. How do you go up and knock on that van door wondering whether a pit bull is going to come out, or somebody that is super defensive and takes an aggressive stance? I don't have the tools to go knock on a mobile home's door that has all the windows tinfoiled over, and you see people riding back and forth on bicycles to visit them. I'm not going to knock on his door and ask him if he needs a litter can.
So one of the things I know that, you said law enforcement may not come, but they will do welfare checks. We could probably, there's, let me see, Greater Lakes Mental Health, Positive Interactions to the city. There's resources that maybe people, that's their job, is to check on people, especially around mental health issues and substance abuse issues. And I understand your concern, because right now we have a very large encampment near our building downtown. And, we interact with them as much as we can, but just, providing garbage bags, because we know the city will clean up the garbage and things like that, and they'll be helpful. But I think maybe just looking for those opportunities that where you see somebody out there and maybe across the street, you can just sort of maybe say hi, strike up a conversation, not necessarily go over there with a plate of cookies and knock on the door, but maybe look for opportunities where you can actually say something to somebody when you feel safe, something like that. But I think just give us a call at Safe Streets and talk with Darren. I believe he pointed you in this direction. So maybe then he can give you some resources to help you guys out as well.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
I tell you, obviously everyone is here, so make it real quick for final thoughts.
Yeah, I would encourage you. I think that we have to be reminded that regardless of whether someone's intoxicated or someone's engaging in criminal activities, that they're human. And I think I love the quote from Kwabi, right? Is like, we know how to eat, but we don't know how to feed. The word "know" in its original language speaks of an espoused relationship, right? So I've been married for 11 years. And a part of having an espoused relationship or knowing my spouse is that every day I don't hold her to who she told me she was 11 years ago when I first met her. As every single day I arrive to our relationship and I allow her to tell me who she is, because my wife's not the same person. So I think what happens is we forget that the people that we engage with are humans and they have values. There are things that they love and things that they treasure. And what I found, the thing that makes relationships stick and make them work is when, as humans, we're able to connect my values with someone else's values. And so I think that requires a human piece. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy and it happens overnight, but I haven't met another human. I live on the east side. There's a lot of homeless people a lot of people who are displaced. And what I found is if I can find a way to connect with the human element of them, and it's there, it's somewhere, it's in there. And if I can connect them to the piece that's human and then my piece of human, then we create a moment of agreement, right? There's a gentleman on Portland Avenue. I live on Portland Avenue. His name is Tarzan. And he runs the homeless community. And we were having a lot of riffraffs. And I said, hey, I'm going to give you a job. And we were talking one day and he's like, I'm Tarzan and I run the homeless community in this area. I said, hey, I'm going to give you a job. I'm like, because you're a leader, right? He's like, yeah, I'm a leader. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to talk to you because you're the leader. I'm going to give you a job. I'm going to give you $20 a month. And your job is to keep my neighborhood clean. I haven't had a problem since. Because I engaged him as human. He's a leader. He wanted to feel like he was in charge. He wanted some power. And I gave him a job. And we have not had one problem since in a year. So now I'm not saying you take that same model. What I'm saying is I engage with him as a human.
All right, Eric, welcome back. Everybody in group one, I will turn things back over to you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Antonio. I think that's such a powerful reminder. I think that a lot of the times we focus on our own experiences and that we forget to really, remember the other and recognize the other and see kind of what's going on in their lives. And I think that's a really important reminder because, in a lot of the work that we're doing, a lot of the groups that we're engaging with, we get really focused on the immediate audience that we're serving. But ultimately, what we're doing is we're trying to make all of our neighborhoods, all of our communities safer, more connected for everyone. And so that's a really good thing to be keeping in the forefront. So thank you for that. And so for everybody, I hope that you had a good conversation in the other breakout room. I know for us, 45 minutes went by pretty quick, and I think that we could have probably kept talking for a little bit. So what I'd like for us to be able to do is, I see that we're at 7:38, and I know that we're supposed to end at 8. So this is, we're kind of running up to it a little bit. So really briefly, I'd love it if there was somebody from both groups who'd be willing to volunteer to give just a really quick sort of high level overview of what it was that really stuck out to you when you were having a conversation in your breakout room. And so I know in our group, I think we had Ramos volunteer. So if you wouldn't mind, and I'll even put up, share my screen really quick, put up some of the notes that we took from our little breakout room. So yeah, if you'd like to go ahead and just talk a little bit about what we were talking about.
Okay, I think from my view, the main thing I got out of our group was that, you know, it is important to get the message out, let people know that we are there, that we exist, where we meet, what time we meet. And it is also important to, once we get you there or get the people there, is to make them feel like they're part of the team, not just, you know, just there to numbers. And it's, you know, he talks so much. I know, but you know, man, those were the main two things that stuck with me. We wanted people to come. We wanted them to feel like they were part of the team. We want them to know that we listen to them, we hear them, and we want them to know that these groups are for the neighborhood, that we should be helping our neighbors do things to make them feel part of the community, make them, if they're lonely, to go out and meet them. And once we get them to the meetings, we can do that. But the main thing that I thought that we were talking about was to get the people there. And there was a lot of ideas, a lot of ways that we could have done that. But it's, you know, I just really enjoyed the talk. And I mean, we got a lot of notes there, but, you know, that's the main thing I thought that we got out of it. Now, maybe somebody in our group can add to that, but that's what I saw, I heard.
Nice. Is there anybody else from my breakout room that wanted to add anything that really stuck out to them that they wanted to share? Okay, cool. So then I also wanted to make sure to give an opportunity for the other breakout room. I'm not sure if you were able to designate somebody as being the sort of person to do the share out, but is there anybody in your group that wants to share something, or just maybe an overall thoughts, feelings, things that really stuck out to you about your conversation?
Say, Michelle, would you be willing to give a couple of highlights?
There we go. Sure. Let's see. So we found that we really like the face-to-face meetings, that being able to engage with our neighbors in person really does seem to help out. So that can be it seems like one of the really effective ways is honestly being outside, walking dogs and things like that, to be able to greet each other and just have a small chit chat, but that chit chat gets to knowing your neighbors and getting being able to spread information that way. And then we also had so like, now I want you to ask Antonio to join and have his whole speech. It was a very inspiring, good speech, of just also, I guess, also just remembering that in a sense that we're all human, we're all connected to each other this way, and it's a good way for us to learn. I guess we're learning how to support each other in the best ways that we can. I'm sure I'm missing a lot from our group. I was not prepared.
You did a great job, Michelle.
Thanks.
So then, it's not all on Michelle. Is there anything that really stuck out to anybody else? So, and this is, I want to kind of open it up so that it's anybody, because this is our large group discussion time. The purpose of this time, and what I think tends to be a really good takeaway from this session is there anything, any idea that you heard that you are not currently implementing with your group, your initiative, your project, your whatever, that you're going to try to implement, or that you think would be a good idea to try to implement with whatever it is that you individually are working on?
I love the idea of the welcome packets and would really like to figure something out on that, on how to get people engaged, especially because like we have a lot of houses in our neighborhood that are up for sale right now. So when new people buy them, it would be the perfect opportunity to welcome them to the neighborhood.
Nice.
I can help you with that.
Thank you. That'd be great.
What else? Did anybody hear anything that they've never really thought about before, that was inspiring to them, that they think, oh, I want to connect with that person to learn more? This is a great time to share that, because ultimately the community conference is just about that, about building community among you all. And so having that network of support that people you can reach out to is really excellent. And in the spirit, one of the things that my group talked about quite a lot is the importance of recognition and celebrating success and sharing those successes. So something that I thought was just really lovely is at the end of our session, Robert and April exchanged contact information so that they could talk more about their groups and the efforts that they're doing. And so it's really just all about making those connections. Is there anything else that really stuck out to anybody that you wanted to bring up, that maybe you had a question that didn't get answered involving engagement that you wanted to bring up before we end the session, or before, I'm done talking during the session?
Oh, I just thought of something else that came out in our breakout group, and that was just a reminder that things take time. That if we're expecting kind of instant results, we might be setting ourselves up a little high expectations there. That if we're planting a seed, we've got to let it grow, and we're doing the groundwork so that others see us, and then that grows into more and goes from there. So I think just remembering that that things can take time, but that you keep that vision in your head of why we're doing the project is important. That's what's going to keep us going forward.
I just want to say thank you to all of you guys that are here and working within your own communities to make a difference. That's where it starts. And I'm just so honored to know and even meet you in this setting for just a short period of time. Makes me feel good to know that the world is so much bigger than my little corner out here, where we're trying to make a difference, that you guys are all on that same mission. So thank you.
Nice. Any other last thoughts before I turn the reins back over to Connor?
Change your hand, didn't you?
It's waving.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, I think that's it for me. So I'm going to hand it back to Connor. But thank you all so much. I really, really enjoyed all the conversations that we were able to have. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about the different great things that all of your groups and Safe Streets is doing in the community. So thank you all so much for being a part of that.
Thank you.
All right. Again, thank you all so much for being here. We appreciate all of your thoughts, your words, your ideas. We have reached the end of our community conference for this year. All of you, thank you so much for being with us for tonight, and for everyone who has participated or particularly has joined to present to us this year. All of these will be on YouTube and up for everyone's being able to look up and review. As per what Eric said, I will do my best to get the notes and everything put together and send it out to all of you. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your night, and thanks again.